Welcome to the Future Ventures podcast, Scaling with Clarity. Today's guest is Mathew Jackson, co-founder and chief commercial officer of Alimentary Systems, a company that's transforming how we think about waste, energy, and infrastructure. Mathew has built and scaled high-growth ventures across global markets, helped drive billions in market value creation, and is a fellow of the Edmund Hillary Fellowship, an international network of impact-driven leaders. At Alimentary, he's focused on turning organic waste into energy value and measurable climate impact. Welcome, Mathew.
Thank you. Kia ora, Maxim from New Zealand, Long Bay, coming here from Tamaki Makaurau in Auckland.
Fantastic. It's great to have you. So do you speak the native language, or we just know a few words?
My journey in Te Reo has started when I entered the Edmund Hillary Fellowship. So I've tried to learn as much about Te Reo and the Treaty of Waitangi as a part of our work, because mana whenua, or the people of the land in New Zealand, have a lot of rights here about what happens in the environment, and they are very much aligned with the way we think. So we spend a lot of time on marae. I'm doing a lot of work with leading Indigenous leaders at the moment around water security. So it's a very important part of our work.
Oh, fantastic. It's by the sounds of it, I've never been to New Zealand. I've always been intrigued. Obviously, the Lord of the Rings has made New Zealand famous. Wine, I love wine. But it's kind of similar. In Canada, we have a lot of Indigenous nations. And so we quite often we would open up meetings and acknowledge start with a land acknowledgement. Perfect. Well, it's great to see you again. I'm disappointed you're not wearing your Luka Dončić jersey, but we'll go with business casual. So, Mathew.
Maxim, you're going to have to tell that story now. Otherwise, you're going to leave the viewers wondering.
Absolutely. So the last time that Mathew and I met, Mathew was wearing a hoodie, and I don't know how we got talking about basketball, but you lifted your shirt and there was a Luka Dončić jersey underneath it. And I was like, okay, well, he's one of my favorite players. I'm originally from Bulgaria. I mean, he's Slovenia, but close enough. My wife is Bosnian, and we both love the same player. And then you went to your wardrobe and you brought these like original jerseys that they were Luka Dončić jerseys, and some of them were kind of a combination because obviously Luka Dončić started with the Dallas Mavericks before he was traded by Nico to LA Lakers, and then you had was it a Dallas Mavericks shirt that had like
I got Dallas Mavericks, I got the Luka LA. I picked it up last time I was in Austin. Yeah.
That is awesome. One of the greatest player.
Yeah, true story, Maxim, as well. Our lead investor, he was introducing us to some of his team, and I walked off the beach much like I did this morning, wearing an NBA jersey, and I came into this meeting, ko Mathew Jackson, toku ingoa e waihara keke iti waipunamu, and the US investors literally had no idea what to do with me. Who's this guy? Walked off the beach. Too casual for us. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, I think you've earned your right. I think you have had some amazing career, and I'd love to double click on it because, I mean, some of the things are, I guess, infamous rather than famous. Like you told me that
infamous is a good way of looking at it.
So why don't you just kind of walk us through your journey, leading from kind of where you started to where you are now with Alimentary Systems?
Yeah, well, sorry, a little bit emotional there because it starts with my parents. If you don't mind, I will do my pepeha.
Sure.
In New Zealand, when we work with Indigenous groups, their belief is that their relations are the land, and so we are completely connected. So I'll do my pepeha in Te Reo and Māori, and then I'll explain it in English, if you don't mind.
I love it.
Yeah. Ko Mathew Jackson toku ingoa e tepu I waihara keke e te waipunamu o Aotearoa no Irirangi no Oko te Puna. Ko waikaru te awa te makitanga, tākau tanganikitanga. ko tongareu te maunga e poipuna kau ina hau, e nehe ana kina taho e nehe ke tamaki makaro e nehe ana au. So what I said was I was born in a place where the mangrove, where the flax enters the mangrove, in a place called Blenheim. My whakapapa, my family, comes from Waikato. I talked about Waikato being the river that makes my heart sad. And my mother was a senior lecturer at Waikato University, but she'd taken us to Florida when she wanted to do a master's and a doctorate in music education. And so that for me has created a lifelong love for learning. I talk about Tongariro being the mountain that makes my heart happy because I love being on a board, whether it's a snowboard or a skateboard or a kite surfing board. And we were in Taupo. My father was a Baptist pastor, and so he gave me my my commitment to community. You know, when you go back, and my whakapapa, my great grandparents were actually missionaries to Kenya. And on my father's side, my great-grandparents were radio operators in World War II. And so to ask me about who I am, it comes from where I come from. And so at a very young age, my mother gave me opportunities to be online in 1992, which is quite early in the age of the internet era.
It is. I mean, I think I got my first email in 94. 2 years later, it was like 28.8 kilobits.
Yeah. So showing our age a little bit now with those that are on the call that remember dial-up modems. But it meant my eyes opened to technology at a very early age. At the same time, it was quite formidable. My father passed away when I was 15. So that meant I became very independent very quickly and didn't really like high school. Dropped out. By that stage, I'd been to 17 different schools. Went to university because I could still play basketball at high school and I could get an education. And after that, went straight into tech. So that's how I got into the industry.
Okay.
What would you like to talk about?
You brought Netflix to New Zealand. You gave it to 300 people, like 300,000 people. All the media companies. You kind of like, what was the origin for the first company?
Okay, so I mean, the beginning of my career, I was an employee. I worked for an infrastructure company. You know, I worked in software as a service. I worked in digital marketing, and at the end of the day, what I realized is the only thing that stopped me from starting my first company was my courage. And so it was like any other business. We ended up meeting at a coffee shop off the main street. There was a couple of technical co-founders. They asked me to come along. I said, what do you want me to do? They said, look, we need somebody to sell it. I said, what is it? What does it cost? What is it worth? And, you know, that was the start of the journey. It was unintentional. Now, when we got to the end of that, what we realized is that we had changed the market nearly $2.1 billion in 3 years, and we had caused convergence in New Zealand, where we had collapsed the bitstream between the television providers and the internet service providers. At the time, we had two monopolies doing a pretty good job. One was running copper networks, the other one was running satellite networks. So they had existing infrastructure assets. The deployment of fiber was behind. There wasn't a reason to use it because we didn't have access to international content over the internet. So by bringing Netflix to New Zealand, we gave people an option to be able to purchase international Netflix at the same time as purchase local content services. We built the technology directly into the internet service provider in a way that the internet became transparent, much like it was designed originally, removing the geographic restrictions that prevent people from accessing international content. Fast forward 3 years, we had 17 customers, around 1 in 9 New Zealanders using the network, and all of the media companies funded out of California decided to take a lawsuit against us. So you go back on my Twitter feed and there's a picture of me drinking a beer on Easter, having been served documents saying we're taking you to court.
Yeah.
So it's a fun ride.
In moments like that, kind of like, what does that feel like? Is the world caving in? Like I mean, this is like a highly unusual situation, and in some
Yeah.
ways, it's a privileged situation because obviously you're successful. Hence, why
Mhm.
the media companies are suing. But kind of like, what did that feel like? How deep did you have to dig in order to, persevere?
Yeah, well, the reason we tweeted it is because we didn't take it seriously at first. So I just be really honest, I was quite naive, you know.
Okay.
We had a small team, we were making good money. At some point we'd broken PlayStation's network, and you can imagine me on the phone with retailers with televisions are being returned to the store, and I'm trying to trouble support the fact that my team has broken PlayStation network. So it was a bit of a wild west while we were doing something that was disrupting global DNS.
Yeah.
But the real experience was that I was out of my depth. We had back-to-back service contracts with our clients that allowed us at any point in time to cancel the service because it was operating in a grey area.
Hmm.
We believed it was aligned to parallel importing, and that parallel importing protected the distribution right of the end user. We also had legal rights for users which allowed them to remove a geo-prevention measure. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had DVD shops, and we wouldn't have out-of-zone DVDs in New Zealand.
Hmm.
And the television provider said, we have exclusive distribution rights and you're breaching those. So we knew that you could talk to one lawyer on this side of the street and get an opinion, and one lawyer on this side of the street and get an opinion. But ultimately, for us, it was about decreasing piracy and increasing choice.
Hmm. Hmm.
But the way it ended was we got into a boardroom. We had, the biggest boardroom of our largest customer, and I'm sitting there with my co-founder, and we've written a letter sitting underneath my laptop, and it says, we don't have the resources to fight these guys.
Yeah.
By this stage, we've already issued a letter saying these guys are bullying us. I've tried to talk to politicians. We've got this room full of people in the boardroom, and then a standing room only around everybody that's sitting down, and a teleconference with basically the whole industry.
Yeah.
And somebody that knew a lot better than me got up and said, we will not stand for this. And it was an out of body experience because I remember thinking, we have created something that is much bigger than us, and
Yeah.
it's being taken on by others. And so it was very surreal. I'm almost getting goosebumps thinking about it at the moment. And yeah, we in that meeting decided to put $100,000 into a media campaign to create memes and probably make fun of the media companies. And in the middle of that, our major backer and our major customer sold his business to an Australian firm, and the whole thing went away.
Wow. Wow. That is a crazy story. But I mean, it goes to show that if you create something that people value, they'll follow you through fire.
Yeah. Yeah, very much. I like to say we had the moral high ground, and I think it's a lot easier place to be than it is when you are being caught up in what is current.
Hmm.
And I sometimes think that the people I'm talking to are going to be on the wrong side of history,
Yeah. So how do you feel about the current environment? Like, I know you're doing something that's like that is special, and I think that if there's kind of one theme that's kind of permeating throughout your professional career, is like you're very focused and driven by impact, and so
Mhm.
even with alimentary systems, impact is core to what you're doing. But I think that's the reason why you were selected to be an Edmund Hillary Fellow as well. So. And you talked about kind of who you are and kind of where you're coming from, but like if you were to put yourself in the current environment, what do you think it's the most impactful thing that you can do? What is the most impactful thing that we can do? And kind of like what does the world look like in 5 to 10 years?
That's a lot of questions
I know.
for me to
I know.
consider.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes it helps me work through what I'm thinking by talking. So if you allow me some space, we
Absolutely.
can answer those questions. Um, but I tend to think about impact in terms of legacy. And one of the characteristics of legacy is that it happens in your past, and you're not usually aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
Usually legacy is something we think about it later in life, but it's actually something that's been created as we're living our lives constantly. And so I tend, I know you're talking about the context on impact of a commercial organization, and we can talk about that, but I tend to think about impact as something that occurs every day with the people
Mm-hmm.
that I'm around. And what I find is if I'm in the impact space working with customers, if I'm not putting that same lens on, then they become an adversary and my ego will get in the way. And I think about them versus us.
Mm-hmm.
So impact for me today or yesterday was, being in a conversation with my daughter about her emotions. She's 18. She started her first year of university. She wants to study at Texas State, and she's thinking about leaving home. So being present in that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 employees. They're a little bit younger, and spending time with them on their health issues and their mental health issues was one of the most impactful things I could have done in the last 24 hours.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. At the same time, we're working with an Indigenous group called Ngāti Toa in Porirua, where the local mayor and councillors have been told by their engineering partners that they cannot extend their landfill because of the odour, and the only option that they have is to put the waste on trucks and send it somewhere else, which would require them to invest in a transfer station. And that process is a public process, and we have been excluded from it. So that creates frustration. And when I get frustrated about the impact I'm creating, I'm not being in service of the mission that we're following. And so when I'm in that impact space and I'm struggling, what happens is I'll put my attention onto an individual who is occurring to me as the block for us creating a
Mm-hmm.
movement. But that's not helpful, because
Mm-hmm.
that then distracts from what is really necessary, which is co-creation or finding a new pathway forward. So when I tend to think about impact, it's really at 2 levels. One, it's who are the people I'm with at the time, and being present and changing their mindsets one conversation at a time. And then also just removing the ego from the conversation, so that when you're in a conversation about creating change, that you are where that person is and helping them move forward. And that's how we actually catalyze the change in people.
I mean, this is really important, and the one saying that comes to mind is like, there's a difference between being right and being effective. And you can be right all you want, but unless you park your ego or leave your ego at the door, it's kind of hard to be effective. And so in the moment, it's quite convenient for you to just gotta focus on, I'm right, like this person is wrong, why we were excluded from this consultation.
Yeah.
This should be a so
Yeah, I agree with you. My wife says, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? There's a really, really succinct way of putting it. Do I want to be right or do I want to be happy?
yeah. And
So
yeah. So how
Go
do you
ahead.
get to being happy? Because obviously, using happy in a bit of a quotation mark here in the but how do you keep those emotions in checks, so to make sure that you're get to the happiness?
Gosh. I go for a walk on the beach this morning, and I mistakenly took my phone.
Okay.
Half of it was on mental health support with one of my team. And so I couldn't focus on the sound of the water and the ocean and the sun. I watched the sunrise. In about a week, I head to Indonesia for a meditation retreat. for 2 weeks to reset. So I think you talked about how to be happy, and I don't know that there's one state called happy. I think in general, it's a birthright to be in the experience of life and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that it always works out the way you intend it to, you know? And it's your responsibility as a human to understand your own biology and how it's reacting and how that impacts others, and take responsibility for it. And so for me, that's playing basketball, that's journaling, that's spending time in nature, that's meditating. And then that allows me to stay present. And I have an environment around me that supports
Mm-hmm.
that. So my co-founder, my wife, my team knows when I'm not happy, when I'm not present. They give me permission to be like that, to know that it's not normal, and then to take space to go and clear it. But it's not an easy thing. I don't think anybody, when we have one condition of life that's not working, whether that's health, money,
Mm-hmm.
career, identity, relationships, it usually impacts all the others. So
Absolutely.
I don't pretend to think that I don't experience those breakdowns in life just because I have these practices.
I mean, being centered, being grounded, like taking time, meditating, it has become more popular. Mental resilience and strength has become like a really important issue, especially for founders, because of all the amount of stress that we are going under.
Mm.
Were you always like that, or is this kind of more of a recent phase of your life where you've understood how important it is for the body mind to be fully connected and in sync?
Um, if I explain to you why or how I've come to think like this, I have to explain some of my education. And
Okay.
so as I unpack your question, what comes up for me is when I was last an employee, and I worked for an amazing company, introducing software as a service to CIOs is often the first cloud service that an IT team adopted.
Mm-hmm.
So incredible experience to bring the cloud to market in New Zealand and India and Japan. And I'm still best friends with the founder of that company. I'm texting him this morning when I'm on the beach. But I wasn't able to progress in that company. And I had 3 managers hired above me for a job that I then trained them in. And there was 2 pathways forward from that. One is to understand and start to take responsibility for my own emotions. And so I went into a self-development program, is the easiest way to describe it, where I started to take responsibility for a simple concept, which is what happened and then how I feel about it, and recognize that those 2 things are separate. And we'd like to collapse them into one thing. So there's what happened, and there's how I feel about it. So there was one path of taking responsibility for my own actions, and then the other path was I didn't desire a career in a corporation. My ultimate expression or desire in life is to experience freedom of choice, and so undertaking an MBA was not logical for me, and so I studied philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really the foundation for my perspective. I studied process philosophy with an institute in California, looking at the work of Alfred Dewey and Whitehead, and the concept of transactionalism, not in terms of an exchange of money, but in terms of exchange of, or an interaction between 2 objects. What I mean by that is humans are object orientated. You think of me as my name, as my company, as my relationship to the fellowship, as the companies. These are all objects that help you relate to who I am and give you
Mhm.
a sense from your perspective. And the study of transactionalism is about understanding how humans are object orientated. It helped me understand my own biases, the biases of others that I can't understand, and how to work well with others. And so that really laid the foundation for how I think and how I operate in the world now.
Wow. I love and admire what you're doing. Super important. It's not, at least I haven't found this to be common for people to do this, but I think it's very necessary because um, I did something similar in 2018. I took
Mm.
a program called The Other Everest, and the whole premise
Cool.
behind it, it's very similar. It was like a
Yeah.
meditation retreat, yoga retreat, and it was all about kind of figuring out who you are as a person. What's your personal mission statement? Like, what drives you to be like, like, why you're on this planet? And so it
Yeah.
was, it was, it still shapes me to this day. The person leading the session was a medical doctor by the name of David Irvine. He still is probably one of the most impactful training I've ever attended. But it was, yeah, to this
Yeah.
day, yeah,
It's a
yeah.
signpost in your life for sure. I can feel it. I can sense how you're feeling about it right now, just reflecting on
Well,
it.
I, I mean, to your point, I still get emotional about it because it put things into context for me as to why am I here, and for like I kind of adopted Dr. Irvin's personal mantra that like I want to be a change maker for change makers. I'm driven by impact, so for me it's like very important. Like when I'm leading teams, I'm obsessed in making them better. And so I was
Mm.
describing this recently last week to someone. It's like I feel like people, at least from a professional setting, like they have a tool chest, and my job is to fill the tool chest with tools that they can use, and that tool chest is portable. Whether they stay
Yeah.
with me or whether they go somewhere else, they get to carry that tool chest, and that's how I view this. It's like I want to make the life of the people around me better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
Wow.
c- I I totally get that. I think most people, if you think, help is a very interesting characteristic that I think a lot of us don't understand. And let me explain why that what you shared with me makes me think of that. Because if you think, like last night, my wife had worked a very long day yesterday, and I'm very lucky. She trained as a French chef when she was younger, and so we have very nice meals.
Yes. Nice.
Um, she doesn't work in a restaurant anymore, but we are the lucky people that get the benefit of that.
Yeah.
And and last night she didn't want to cook, and I'm really good at burgers,
Okay.
right? That's my thing with our family, and that's the help that she needed
Hmm.
at that point. But
Hmm.
I got more out of that than she did
Hmm.
because I get to look after the
Yep.
kids. I get
Yep.
to give the kids something they enjoy.
Yep.
I get them happy with me. And so that nature of help is that it's usually the person who's in service that gets the most from it, you
Absolutely.
know?
Uh, Absolutely.
And yeah.
No, it's kind of like um when somebody's making donation who or somebody's gifting, the person giving is the person
Mm,
gets more than the person receiving. It completely resonates with me because like my wife is like, why are you driving the kids everywhere? I'm like, well, it's windshield time, but it's windshield time that's one-on-one time that I wouldn't
yeah.
normally get with them. And my kids are teenagers, they're 12 and 14 at the moment. They're not very keen on mom and dad. So I'll take whatever time I can with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife was the same. She taught me this for
Yeah.
sure. I get it. I
Yeah.
understand. Um, The other element of help I find is that by the time you have to ask for it, you don't really know what help you need.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to recognize that the help that's offered has two factors. One is that it's what the other person is willing to offer. And the second thing is that they might be offering something you don't understand you need.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's how I think about help. It's reciprocal in its nature, and it gives to the people that are generous with it and in service of others, and that often you don't know the help that you need.
Yeah. 100%. In our company, we talk about TTF and TTV,
Mhm.
and uh, the TTF is from trying to blank. He's a famous restaurateur in New York. Unreasonable Hospitality is the book that he wrote. Uh, and so TTF is time to fun, and TTV is time to value. So with us, we are absolutely obsessed
Oh, I love that.
when we're working or we're
Yeah.
starting to work with a company. Give value, give value, give value. It's not about keeping count as to how many hours I spent. It's like
Yeah.
we're planning a launch event at the end of May, and it's like, what's our TTF? What's our TTV? How are we going to drive unreasonable amount of value for the people that are attending? And what's the fun experience? How can we have a elevated experience? So as soon as people walk in, it's like, oh my God, this is a fun event. And so we kind of brainstorm. It's like, okay, we got to have a photographer on staff. We got a videographer. We got to send them with clips. We have to provide them with a marketing package. We like as soon as they walk in, they have to have a glass of champagne. Like, it was just like
Yeah.
TTV, TTF.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That single unifying idea that everybody can get behind and they can understand and they can make their own. That's fantastic,
Yeah.
Maxim. Love that idea. I think I
Yeah.
might steal it.
Please do. Please do.
Yeah.
I've stolen it from somebody else. So Will Gabor, I can't remember his name, but anyways, he's amazing. It's probably one of the, I read a lot of books. It's probably the one book that they've read in the last 6 months where I listen. I don't read. I probably listen it like walking the dog in probably like 36 hours. I just crashed that book because I loved it so much.
Nice. Make sure you
Yeah.
put it in the show notes so people can find it.
I will. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But this kind of digressed into more of a personal side. I want you to tell me a little bit about Alimentary Systems, because I think that you guys are
Sure.
building something special there, in terms of what you're building, how you're turning waste into capital, the 4 revenue streams, how you're impacting the environment, how everyone is benefiting from this. And so talk to me more, like tell the listeners, the viewers, about kind of like what you're building and why it's so special.
Yeah. So the foundation of it is my business partner and the founder of our company, Haman Maran, used to work for Tata Motors and developed sustainable biofuel with Jaguar Land Rover, was involved in vehicle testing.
Mm-hmm.
True story. One time we were talking about the use of artificial intelligence in our organization because we're very, very, very advanced with AI, and he developed machine learning for motor vehicles. So telling me about testing that they were doing and how he didn't always trust the machines. And in one use case, they were putting the Land Rover under a 35-degree angle, and it had rolled because the sensors didn't activate the braking system.
Okay.
So he went through and told me the story for about 5 minutes. And I got to the end of it. I said, "Hey, Amant, who was in the car? Was it automated driving?" And he goes, "Oh, no, I was the driver of the car." So, so he's a guy that made cars and vehicles safe for Tata Motors and a lot of the UK brands. And then he'd gone home, and the Godavari River, where he had grown up as a kid in India, was polluted, so his kids couldn't play.
Yeah.
And so he'd realized that sewage was being discharged into the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
and the Asian Development Bank was funding water treatment, but because India as a country was energy poor,
Mm-hmm.
and the treatment system sat dormant, so it wasn't occurring. At the same time, the energy from sewage is quite low value when it's on its own. And in parallel, India has a large horticultural industry, and I'm not sure if you know about wheat, but when they clear the field, it gets burned. And so they burn off the waste of the wheat industry, it creates
Mm-hmm.
huge amounts of smoke. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, that carbon being released into the atmosphere. So there's two disparate problems. One, sludge that on its own creates a lot of nitrogen release. And on the other side, the industrial waste that creates a carbon release, both damaging the environment. The thought process was to combine those two waste streams into a single waste stream, so that when you mix the carbon with the nitrogen, it would increase the amount of energy, and then that energy could be exported to the wastewater treatment system so that it could take care of providing clean water to India. So that's where the origin of the company comes from. And Haman had won an incredible contract to build 20 facilities in India, and had a change of government, and they cancelled the contract, which he then took to their Supreme Court and realized that India was not the place to build the company. We met through the Alimentary Fellowship, and at the time I had realized that I was working on the right things, but with the wrong people, and had taken really a 1.5 year sabbatical to figure out what do I want to do next after exiting my ventures. And we met, and I acted as a friend, as a confidant, somebody that decides to move to New Zealand. I help them understand what are the differences with New Zealand's culture and introduce them to people so that they can develop a network. And after about 9 months, I said, okay, I'm all in on this. This is what I want to spend the rest of my life doing. The mission is that big that we will never run out of ideas, and I want to put my single focus into doing this for the rest of my life. So that's how we started the business. What we do is develop low cost and high energy output sanitation solutions. And so the core of the organization is that we, at this stage, have I'm right in the middle of drafting a subscription agreement and updating our shareholders agreement and constitution for our lead investors. And so we're in the middle of that capital raise right now. And we are building a 20-ton facility in Bell Island in Nelson, where we will divert industrial organic waste away from the landfill, working with Waste Management New Zealand. And we charge them a lower price than the landfill so that it attracts the waste rather than sending it to landfill. Now, we also process the sludge that comes out of the Bell Island waste treatment plant. Instead of it going into a geobag and just sitting on the side of the road or being sent to landfill, because sludge is sent to landfill and organic waste is sent to landfill when there's no alternative option.
Okay.
So what we've figured out is we can be paid to process the organic waste. And instead of it going to a landfill, where they also pay a levy for the waste minimization, it's a levy to prevent more landfills being built effectively, and they pay an emissions liability. We get paid through that levy, and we reduce emissions, and so we can claim a gross emissions reduction based carbon credit. We can also sell the energy, and we can also sell a synthetic fertilizer replacement that has a similar NPK value and can be used through existing fertilizer systems. When we do that, what happens is the unit economics change. So, for example, 1 ton of waste that's processed at the landfill will create $183 worth of value for the landfill owner, whereas 1 ton of waste processed through an alimentary system will create 441 tons of economic value for the technology owner. So what that does is it increases the revenue multiplier by 2.4 times.
Yeah.
And that's really important, because we're not going to improve the environment unless we improve the economics of the technology that improves the environment. Everybody kind of understands now that solar is actually a really cost-effective technology, widely deployed. There's no question about that unit metric at the moment. But right now, most of our customers still prefer to build a landfill or use a sludge pond or a geobag system or a compost. And in all of those situations, we know that we can come in at a lower cost, create more value, and actually save money for both the municipality, the industry, and the environment, while making significant returns for investors. The types of returns I'm talking about are significantly above industry average. Our base case, just if we're processing gate fees, sits at around 30% IRR on our projects. And when we're assessing versus traditional technologies, in one case we've looked at, we will save the local municipality close to I think the prices they're looking at now for transporting waste out of region are $560 to $680, and we can come in at around $311. At the same time, we can reduce the cost to the residents of that community by around $88 per household per year, while we make a return for investors using some really interesting financial tools that exist. Essentially green bonds, to provide a net benefit for investors of close to $42 million in less than 3 years on a capital spend of under $1 million. So we're at the point now where we have figured out the unit economics to build $1 billion business in New Zealand, and we'll be able to do that probably in the next 10 years.
And New Zealand is just the starting point. This solution scales to any geography, anywhere where there's like wastewater.
Yeah, well, 80% of wastewater globally is still discharged without treatment. Even in New Zealand, we have a council in the Banks Peninsula that's looking at spending $200 on what they call an outfall, $200 million on an outfall pipe, which basically means they build a big pipe into the middle of the ocean so that they don't dump it near the sea, near the shore. Like it. Yeah. That's it. That's the solution. We're going to pipe it into the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
All right. So because of the nature of the technology, it has 5 revenue streams, both inputs and outputs, and effectively every market we operate in, there's some type of government subsidy. So we can play with those levers in order to operate in any global market. I've currently got revenue opportunities in the UK, Indonesia, Vietnam. I have more demand for our technology than I have the resource available to meet the needs of it. So yeah, it's a good thing, and also we need to get more resources on board to have more impact, you know?
Amazing. Can we just quickly step through the 5 sources? I'm assuming government subsidies, offtake agreements, the carbon credits, energy generation. I'm drawing a blank through the 5th, but do you mind just talking a little bit about each one of the revenue sources?
Yeah, sure. So a gate fee is also known as a processing fee.
Yep.
So instead of paying the landfill, you would pay us. Okay. That makes up about 2/3 of our revenue. And we can do it cheaper than a landfill. The second thing, and this is, it's still an approving stage. And so we have a huge amount of central government funding, and that's what we're raising co-funding from our impact investment community, is to do a research program with a university to prove the efficacy of the fertilizer replacement product. And so what comes out of the system is a liquid that is nutrient rich and bioavailable for soil and for plants. And there's three elements that we have to prove. One is safety, two is efficacy, and the other thing is acceptance. And so
Okay.
we have 3 of the largest farms in New Zealand involved in that program. We have farming partners signed up to that program. We have the safety and the efficacy as a part of the research program, and we have the channel to market all in place, ready for the Nelson project. But that fertilizer, if we can sell it for just its value of its nitrogen nutrients, would be around $180 per ton. If we would sell it for the market price of its nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, it would be around $480 per ton. So that's what the research is designed to do, to determine what is it really worth.
Okay, interesting. And in this case, the fertilizer is a direct replacement for nitrogen-based fertilizer. So we instead of natural gas, we're using the off gases from processing the sludge or the wastewater, and so we're creating the fertilizer. So it's a byproduct, derivative product that we couldn't monetize it before at the gate because we were dumping it into landfills, but now we're taking it and turning it into an additional product.
Yeah, I mean, we the common word for this would be the circular system. Most people understand that what we're doing is called bioenergy. It's a little bit more advanced than that. We do use 100-year-old technology that's proven, a combination of anaerobic digestion and thermal hydrolysis. The thermal hydrolysis is, think of it like a pressure cooker. So it heats up and sterilizes the pathogens in the sludge so that it's safe to apply to land. And because we mix the organic waste and the sewage sludge, we get it's called co-digestion, and what it does is reduce the level of contamination in what we call digestate. And so that's where we basically remove and are significantly safer than the existing health-based guidelines that exist globally. So we measure into international standards what the output of our fertilizer look like. What our job is with the farmers of New Zealand is to prove that we can improve their soil health, improve their water holding capacity of their farm. It's the biggest issue that we have with farmers is the amount of water that's available for growing food or growing grass. And if you haven't been paying attention to the Strait of Hormuz, the 2 biggest problems are fertilizer and energy. Fertilizer is a key ingredient for food security. So the current way that fertilizer is created is it's mined from phosphorus, and then it's put onto a ship, and then it's sent, and it's a very high and energy intensive process called Haber-Bosch, which was developed for the atomic bomb. So not one of those things where we think we really need to have in a world where we want to create green fertilizer from the nutrients that are already bioavailable from our waste.
In our city, we have a company that's in the space. Used to be called Agriums, and then Agrium and Potash merged, and now it's called Nutrien. And they have operations all over the place, including Australia. I don't know if they have operations in New Zealand, but it's a global company. It's somebody I don't know because Nutrien's business is really wholesale, retail, and precision agriculture. There may be some potential opportunities to collaborate there, at least on the distribution side.
Yeah, absolutely. We rely on distribution partners. We don't pretend to want to have the sales channel for all of our products. We do a direct energy offtake to a lines company or directly into the wastewater treatment plant as that one of those core revenue streams. The electricity makes up around 5% of revenue. And then the other part of the business is that gross emissions reduction. So every market is different, but we use international standards that are aligned to the international best practice. One of our board members Dr. Anne Smith, we're very lucky to work with her. She's involved in the setting of global standards for carbon credits, and in fact invented the world's first carbon trading platform in New Zealand when she worked for Landcorp. It eventually became Toitū EnviroCare and has over 100 staff at it. So she's been at the forefront of carbon emissions regulation for 20 years, and she's a part of our team. So it's an incredible knowledge base. And what we're doing is even challenging her, because it's kind of pressing the boundaries of what's possible under regulation based on global standards. So what I mean by that is in New Zealand, we have offsets, which are forestry. So if you pollute and then you need to buy carbon credits, the only way you can do that is to buy them from somebody that is growing a pine forest.
Mm-hmm.
That's the emissions trading scheme. Or you can buy a voluntary unit, and that's coming from native forests.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you'll offset your carbon emissions to become net zero. And there's some other intricacies to it, but that's essentially how it works.
Yep.
We are a gross emissions reduction, and that means we sit in the compliance market, and we've figured out how to get onto the compliance market through existing regulations and auditors. So we'll be the first New Zealand-based carbon credit under existing regulations to be on the emissions trading scheme, which took us about 4 years to figure out, and is a bit of a trade secret. So I'm not sure why I'm telling the world about it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Anything like that, it's hard fought, hard won in terms of getting to this point. But when it comes to buyers of carbon credits, they want that verifiability of the origin.
Yeah, it's also very interesting because we can create an international unit, and carbon credits in different markets have different prices. It's really interesting. I find myself coming back to the geo unblocking solution, where we're looking at the price of media in one market and playing with it in the other. So I can sell the same carbon credit in New Zealand as a compliance unit for $45, or I can sell it to a New Zealand exporter who's selling into the UK for 127.
Yeah. Yeah.
So same carbon credit, same customer, different market.
Yeah.
Different because of different regulation, but has the same impact on their ability to be net zero. So yeah, there's some complexity to it, but at the moment my credits will be sold into the UK voluntary market.
Makes sense. In Canada, the federal government set carbon pricing, and it was escalating price curve. I don't remember the exact price. I think it was the 2025. It came at like 150 per ton, and then it was supposed to peak at like 250 or something like that. The price is, I don't know how many companies actually paying that price. But there's definitely a market in this.
Yeah, there's definitely a market, and like just to give you a comparison, we've determined that if we only based our business based on selling carbon credits and not any of the gate fees or the electricity or the fertilizer or the grant subsidies, we could still create carbon credits for $31 New Zealand.
And the selling price in New Zealand, you said, is 47. So 31. So you still have delta.
Mm-hmm.
If you sell it to the UK, you're doing 4x the cost. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So healthy margin.
We've got some healthy margins. And we also, let's be clear, in our business, we've built a project that's 200 tons for somebody else. That team is together. It's now building in the New Zealand market for the first time. We're building. We've got the project, we've got the land, we've got the leases, we've got the offtake agreements, we've got the government support, we've got the investors on board. and we will have another 12 to 18 months before we get that project stood up.
Yep.
And at that point in time, all of the things that I'm talking to you about now are projections based on what we expect to happen in the future.
Makes sense. And in terms of building all these projects, I'm assuming that many of them would fit under kind of like a PPP umbrella, public-private partnerships. So the government would invite like private companies to co-develop the project, and then you will get like the offtake agreement or gate fee or licensing for the use of the technology. With this kind of how
we
you
see
scale where you are now.
Two core business models. So we have projects that we would fund and own that would provide a return on investment to investors. We've got 3 of those identified for a total of around 320 tons processing capacity across different locations in New Zealand. And then we have what's known as our 220 model. So it's a fairly standard model of managing capital where you raise a large fund. The conversations we're having are around $200 million US at the moment. And we take a 2% management fee, and we take a commission on the revenue of the profit of the system that's shared with, for us 20%, and then for the investor 80%. And the reasons to do that are that we maintain the control of our IP, and it means we don't risk losing our IP based on having sold access to it. So it does a little bit of protection, and it also means that we can rapidly scale accessing private market capital. So that's the thinking of how this business scales. It accesses sovereign wealth fund, long-term capital infrastructure projects, bring in highly efficient technology at a lower cost from international markets, undercut the existing service providers, provide a better service at a lower cost, at a lower risk, better for the environment, and then do it as many times as possible based on international standards.
Yeah. I mean, it's a win-win-win from every perspective. Investors win, stakeholders win, environment wins, everybody wins.
Yeah. That's
including the taxpayer base, because to your point, Matt, you said they have to pay less in terms of their monthly fees to the municipalities.
Yeah, what frustrates me to no end is when I see an increase in the rates when I know it doesn't have to happen. I don't understand sometimes the inertia behind the decision making. Do not assess risk that's occurring because you've got momentum. Now, many people think I'm a risk taker, and it's to some extent it is true. I can sit in uncertainty in a way that's a lot easier than others. But the reality is I'm actually very risk averse. What I do is identify what the problem is, and I solve it as fast as possible, and create and remove the uncertainty. And so it's really interesting. The perception of my work is it's risky. The reality is that I have rapidly iterated time and time again to remove as much risk as possible. Regularly. It's an interesting space to sit in sometimes, being the thing that's new.
For sure. And so as we work with our clients, we tell them that this is a bit controversial. We are firm believers in this, and it kind of dovetails nicely with something that you said earlier. We believe that the number one risk that any and every company faces is capital allocation risk. You framed it, you were working on the right things with the wrong founders. And so when it comes to capital allocation, the same thing, where you put your money, what are you going to allocate the capital towards? And the best thing that we can do for these founders or CEOs, leaders, is to help them with their capital allocation framework so that they, to your point, you said I'm a risk averse. you're risk averse because you have done a lot of work to make an informed decision as to why you're
Yeah,
doing this and how have you taken risks off the table and what
agree,
the things that must go right, and spending 4 years on convincing the government or the regulators that this is where it needs to. It's all about de-risking or providing
agree.
protection. I couldn't agree more with everything you're saying.
Oh, we will always have risk,
Yep,
but we prioritize that risk.
agreed.
I'm very clear on what my current risks are, and they will
Hmm.
be different in 6 months' time, and they will be different in 6 months' time, and they will be
Yep,
different in 6 months' time. So I can state my current risk, I can state my current mitigation, I
yep,
cost my risk, so exactly w- I know exactly what my risk will cost me and how to undo my plan. So if you want to talk about risk, I'm really happy. I'm really happy to have a conversation about risk. It doesn't mean I'm risky. It
yeah,
means that
agree.
we've thought through the consequences and we
Yeah,
have remediated actions, and those things are in contracts. You know,
sure.
for example, if we in the Nelson project we can't sell the fertilizer,
Yeah.
we don't have a liability with disposal because we'll give it back to the wastewater treatment plant,
Hmm.
and so they'll process it through their existing trade waste system.
Hmm.
Now, it's just a practical example of if this research program doesn't work the way we think it will do, what will the alternative process be?
Yeah.
If we can't process if we can't process the waste into our system because we've taken it offline,
Yeah.
it will still go to the landfill.
Yeah.
So there is resiliency and redundancy built into this project at Nelson. It's what we call a safe to fail environment.
Yeah.
Um, at the same time, I can still make $1.6 million in processing fees and have very low disposal costs. So we're in what some people refer to as a bluebird.
Hmm.
So we've got a good project. It's commercially viable. It's designed to be a demonstration of what's possible at a commercial scale in New Zealand using proven technology imported from overseas. And if we can do that, then we can change the world.
Mathew, couple of questions on
Mm.
the scalability side. What's the smallest plant size? And like if like let's say I don't know if is it 50 tons or is it like so, and how easy to go from 50 to 100 to 200 to 300 to 400, kind of like what is the scalability curve looking like?
Yeah, great. So the first thing to understand is 20 tons sounds like a lot, but it's not really. It's 20 tons would support a community of around 4,000 people.
Okay.
Okay. A 20-ton system is and will create enough energy that it runs itself. So
Hmm.
at that point in time, it's basically a fertilizer plant. It's not necessarily going to have an energy output that we can sell to the grid. So it's
But
profitable, it's
you like
self-sustaining. Yeah, it has like if you look at Nelson, um, Nelson has a payback of 5.5 years.
wow,
Right. So it's not
pretty quick.
it's not a bad business. It's not a bad business. It still makes good returns. It's better than putting it in the bank. So that's what a 20-ton system looks like in New Zealand. Of course, it's different when you go to Vietnam or you go to India or Indonesia, but that's a New Zealand use case.
Okay. Okay.
When we go up to 200 tons, that's when we get the energy offtake that will provide enough gas
Hmm.
for around 1,600 households to use it for heating their water or for cooking.
Hmm.
Um, we can so that gas requires treatment. So when it comes out of the system, it has a high level of carbon dioxide. So we have to undertake a process called scrubbing to make it fit to put into a gas network or to convert into electricity. And then the price of electricity it depends on the time that you sell it.
Yep.
And so we could create effectively a large battery that stores energy to be released in peak, which
Peak.
is
Yep.
one of the projects that we're looking at. And then that
Nice.
changes the price of energy on the system. But we That's the difference between a 20-ton system and a 200-ton
Okay.
system. It's the amount of energy that we can put back into the grid. And from a scalability perspective, we don't go any larger than that. It requires a change in the engineering. Everything prior to
Okay.
that is modular and scalable, can be doubled in size for minimal cost. We put everything into a container that's it's shipped, it's packed, it's like a Lego set basically.
Yep.
And so we don't go any larger than that because the structural engineering everything's too heavy.
Yeah.
So 20-ton is about 5,000 people, 200-ton is about 80,000 people. Sorry, 100-ton is about 80,000 people, 200 tons about 200,000 people. And so those are really nice sweet spots. They sit around 2 or 3 hectares. We can go into a brownfields location, so there's already land available. And because these systems are odorless, and it's not like a compost and a landfill where there's smell, it means that it's easier to get consented, or because it's at an existing location, they already have the consent to do the project because it's existing use. So they're much easier to deploy than consenting for a new landfill, and which could take up to 10 to 12 years.
So I live in Calgary, and in Calgary we have these massive sewage lagoons that are by the river, and obviously I'm assuming they combine some kind of a chemical to let the sludge settle down, and then they clean out the water, and the clean water is piped. From a processing time, how this compares to like the traditional method of just kind of spinning through like the lagoons, letting it settle, versus like piping it through your system?
Well, the first thing to realize is that that's called a settling pond. And what happens is that they'll aerate it, but that sludge settles to the bottom.
Yep.
And they still have to do something with that sludge.
Clean it out. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
They put a big vacuum truck into it, and they suck it up, and then they'll do one of two things. One is they'll put it into a geo bag and just leave it on the side of the road, and all the water will leak back out into the groundwater.
Yeah.
Or they'll put it in a truck, and the reason that they've sucked it out of the pond and dewatered it is so they have less weight to move.
Okay.
But that sewage pond is still sending sludge to landfill.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening in your backyard.
Interesting, because it's very noticeable. It's like it's the Caffro Bridge, so it's like we have these like massive highways in Calgary that now they're extending them to 8 lanes, so 4 in each direction. And as you pass over the Caffro Bridge, you can smell it. Depending on where the wind is blowing, you can constantly smell it. Yeah.
So we're the replacement for. So if you had the sludge pond, we take the sludge out.
Yeah.
We process it. We put the energy back into the wastewater treatment system.
Amazing.
What that energy is used for is what they call an aerated lagoon. And so an aerated lagoon, it reduces the footprint to a much smaller size. So you don't need huge amounts of land, because we process it to a much safer perspective, to a much safer standard for either disposal or for resale. It is much smaller amounts of land. So we're all about, because we have a limited, New Zealand has abundant land, which is what's led to landfills. Yeah. But in large municipal centres, we're all about minimizing the footprint,
of course,
reducing the use of sludge ponds where the effluent quality is very low. Yeah. As it doesn't have a good impact on the environment, to enable the energy to improve the water quality for improved water treatment. That's our core business.
Love it. I know we're way past our time, but I think that what you're building is fascinating. And we talk about product market fit. I think that you have hit product market fit on the head, because it's a win-win from every perspective. Investors win, environment wins, municipalities win, stakeholders win, municipal dwellers win. I think it's a beautiful solution what you've created, and as well, like, it's a circular system, so there's just so many benefits that they're attached to us. I just want to thank you for the time. It was fascinating. Can't wait to continue the conversation. I think that what you've done it's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, would you mind if I just offer one more gift before we close out, Maxim?
Please.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about Te Reo and Mataranga, but I would love to close with a karakia, if you would allow me.
Okay. Of course.
Now, a karakia, an easy way to look at it, and you're familiar with Indigenous work in Canada, so you would have heard something similar, but essentially it's a prayer or a way to close a space. And before I do the karakia, I'll read to you the English version.
Okay.
It's from an artist called Scotty Morrison, and so it's for companies like mine, which are not a Māori company, a tauiwi company, to use so that we're not taking anybody else's work.
Okay.
So the karakia is completed, it is done. We have achieved our purpose and completed our forum. Let the purpose of our gathering rest for now. Let the vitality of our discussions replenish as we depart with fulfilled hearts and minds, strengthened in unity. So that's the English version, and I'll do the karakia now. Te whakatanga e tēnei e kaupapa kai e tēnei e whakatanga kai e. Te Māori e te kaupapa kai e whakamoe, te Māori o te whakatanga kai e whakamoe. Ko e ronga, ko e raro, hui, taiki.
That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate you letting us close the space like that.
My absolute pleasure. You're one very grounded individual, very connected. It's been an absolute pleasure meeting you and getting to know you, and I can't wait to continue the conversations. Yeah, it's beyond expectation in terms of the conversation that we've had. I just want to say thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate the opportunity to have this korero. And if this helps any founders, I'm open to having that conversation with them about how we manage this. And, you know, if there are comments about diving deeper, then we can have another one of these and try to help the community, because nothing that I'm doing is unique to me or secret. It's just my own personal journey, you know?
Of course. Of course.